I realize that's an awful lot of theory for a program that's supposed to be focusing on the Dramatica software, but in this particular window, it's really kind of necessary in order to show why all these things are here. But how do the features work in this window? What do you do with it? Well, it's really rather simple. There's only a couple of things you need to do. In each one of the through lines, there are 4 signposts spanned by 3 journeys. Each signpost describes a topic area that's explored, and the journey describes that exploration. These things happen in order for each of the 4 through lines, and at the end of the story, then all of them will have been explored completely from beginning to middle and end. What you do is you click up here when the pointer turns to a little hand. You have to get right over the words. When you do, you click, and it opens up a menu of some terminology. I mean, wow, terminology in Dramatica. But you get past, or progress, or future, present, understanding, doing, obtaining, being something, becoming something. What is the subject matter that everyone, remember the objective story, everyone is involved in at the beginning of your story? And you'll make a selection. For example, maybe they're all obtaining something. People are getting a degree, they're getting somebody's love by getting married, they're getting a marriage certificate, maybe they're getting an inheritance. Everybody in the story is obtaining something. That gives a feel of consistency to your story because the same kind of thing is happening overall. But what happens next? What's the next area? Well, it could be understanding something, doing something, learning something. Let's say they start by obtaining, and then they arrive at an understanding. Okay, then signpost 1 is obtaining, signpost 2 is arriving at an understanding. They have to move from having obtained to the point that they are holding on to what they've got so much that it leads to an understanding. Okay, down here's where you describe that. You describe what everyone is trying to obtain. You describe over here what is the understanding at which they arrive. And then, in the middle, for Journey 1, you describe how the characters get from obtaining this, how that leads to their arriving at an understanding. You do this for each of the 4 through lines, because in effect, all the signpost 1s are really sort of happening at the same time. They're just 4 different angles on the same football game, as it were. And this is the 2nd quarter, and that's the 3rd quarter, and then you have the 4th quarter, and these are all the plays that take place in between. By having this laid out in this manner, you get a sense of what's going on at the same time in your story from these 4 different angles, and the opportunity to express what each of these items is. As you continue to make choices for the other through lines, here we'll choose the past. The main character is dealing with the past. Now, in italics, Dramatica is filling in other information. When you make enough choices about the order in which events are going to transpire, Dramatica can deduce what other kinds of events must transpire, what other kinds of subjects must be explored in order to support and be consistent with what's happened that you've chosen directly. So Dramatica's story engine is at work here, filling in the gaps so that the entire sequence of events in each one of your essential through lines is consistent internally and with all other 3 through lines that it has to contend with at the same time in the story. Now, if you come to this window after you've already created a complete story form elsewhere in the Dramatica software, all of these signposts and journeys will already be filled in for all 4 through lines. Then you'll just simply put in the storytelling to express how that particular conceptual item actually shows up in the development of your story. However, if you're more of a plot-oriented writer, you may want to come here first and choose these items directly like we just did. And then based on determining your plot line, go into the rest of the software and build the rest of your story around it. Again, if you're a more inspirationist writer who likes to follow the muse, but you're still more concerned with plot than anything else, you'll come here first and put in your storytelling in sequence for each of the 4 through lines, and after you've done that, then you'll make your structural choices based on what you've seen in your storytelling to choose the terms that most closely relate to what you've actually written. And if you find that some of the choices that are ultimately available have been limited down to those that don't match with what you've written, that's nothing wrong. That's Dramatica's story engine doing its job. It's saying, based on the choices that you've made, some of these things you've said are not consistent in a truly accurate logistic progression. So now you have to choose to either change your storytelling to match the progression, try another progression that might better match your storytelling, or just ignore that differential and say, what the heck, it's not a particularly important point. I know that I'm going to write this particular bit of storytelling so strongly that it will overpower any minor structural problems it could have. Because that's always your choice with Dramatica. You don't have to follow what it says. If you want to go with your instincts, or you just have a favorite piece of storytelling, you can always go with it. The only difference is, now you'll know for sure that it is inconsistent, it won't creep up on you unexpectedly, and you can make a conscious choice as to whether you're going to overrule good structure for the sake of even better storytelling, or try and bring things into a better line with what would be an accurate structure.